All right, very good. So this is a bump and run type shot, a little chip shot. There's definitely no shame in putting. I want to make that very, very clear. You'll see some of the best players in the world putt all over the place. I'm fortunate enough to play in a couple of Waste Management Phoenix Opens, and around those greens when it is rock hard, firm, and super tight, nobody should be trying to chip any of those shots, right? Unless you've got like this next one we have where you've got to go over a bunker, right? So don't just assume that from right here this is automatically a shot with a lofted club. Okay, a 60 degree, definitely not. We don't want to do that. Okay. The wedge that I like to use when I am using a wedge is a 50 degree wedge. And the reason is because it's a thin, more bladed style wedge. Most everybody, when we get to pitching wedge 9 and further on, we start getting into those bigger cavity back type clubs, right? Those cavity backs are designed to hit the ball further and to have less feel. So if you're using a oversized cavity back type wedge, you actually have less feel than you do a blade style wedge. Okay, now just like I said with putting, one-handed putting is going to help you to gauge that feel as well. But remember also it's to remind you to keep that putter as low to the ground as you can. Okay, so that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to keep the theme going. We're going to do one-handed chipping. Okay, now if you notice the length of my putter, if I was gripping down at where my dominant hand would be, I would be down here all the way to the bottom of my grip, which means if I transfer that over to here, I'm basically on the shaft. The biggest mistake that I see most people making when they're working on their chipping is they're gripping it all the way at the end of the club. And what that doesn't allow you to do is it doesn't allow you to have kind of a smooth pendulum type stroke. When you grip toward the end, there's so much shaft there, most people start picking up and hinging it up in the air. And if they do think they're going to try to do a putting stroke, it's so unfamiliar because the putter line angle is like this and the iron line angle is like this that they get all confused. So what we have to do, raise the wedge up in the air, grip all the way down onto the shaft, stand close to it just like we're doing on the putting green. You'll notice now that the grip is up here out of the way of my stomach, right? If I grip down but I lower it, I'm going to hit myself on the side. So I'm going to raise it up. I'm going to do one-handed. I'm going to keep that club very low back and through, and it's just like a putting stroke. You can notice here in my wrist angle there is no hinge, right? If we did that on the putting green, we just took it straight back, didn't we? So same thing here. The one adaptation you can do on the putting green, you're going to have the ball probably more in the middle of your stance, but in this chip shot, go ahead and put it directly off that back foot, whatever that back foot is. For those of you that are dominant with that lead hand, I'm going to say go ahead and stick with that theme as well. Let that shaft, that grip kind of run up the forearm of that lead hand. You can even kind of anchor it there a little bit if you want. Once it's there, swing it back and forth this way. One thing that this does, just like you found in the short game in the putting, in chipping it's going to be even more revealing, is that one-handed, this club feels like it weighs a lot more than when you're doing it with two hands, right? Especially if you're not super strong in your arms and your wrists anyway. What it does is it allows you to actually get more in tune with kind of a smooth pendulum stroke. If you try to force this thing around, that's when you're going to have a lot of mishits. So embrace the idea of a heavy pendulum type stroke. Okay, you're going to do the same thing one-handed, and then you're going to add your other hand. Main thing is this is essentially a stroke. It's not a hit or a stab or anything like that. Questions?
Can you talk a little bit about bounce?
No.
No, you don't want to.
No. No. We want to keep this as simple as possible. In this, I will address that real quick though. There is no bounce for us to consider because we're just sweeping and swinging. We're not actually engaging the bounce of the club. By the way, that's kind of what this part is back here. We're not using the bounce, we're not activating the bounce, we're not doing anything like that. What we're doing is a stroke, right? In this case, with a stroke, there is no use of the bounce. We're only using the leading edge. Maybe over here we'll do a little bit of bounce.
Typically bounces if we're doing like high lofted shots, right, where I don't want the club there. This is engaging more of a leading edge than more of the bounce.
Yeah, this is a stroke.
Putting stroke.
Yeah, basically a putting stroke. Yeah, real simple. And if you want to, you can use your putter a couple of times. If you want, you can use an 8-iron or a 7-iron or another iron if you want. But if you only brought wedges, use the lower lofted wedge that you have. And in my bag, it's about a 50 degree, so that's why I demostrated with that. 52.